I'm Eleanor Harper. I stood in my Asheville living room, my heart pounding, as I looked into the eyes of my son Caleb and his wife Sophia. The air was thick, like the room itself knew a secret was about to unravel. "I know the truth," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Their faces paled, their glances darting with panic. In my hand, I clutched a small object, a clue from my late husband James's past, something Caleb and Sophia had risked everything to steal and hide. But it was not just an object. It was the key to a secret that could shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. How do you face betrayal from the ones you love most? Stick with me, because this story will take you through the shocks, the secrets, and the journey to reclaim myself. I sat at my kitchen table in Asheville, North Carolina, the morning sun spilling through the window, painting golden streaks across the worn wooden floor. I had seen my share of sunrises, but this one felt different, heavy with a truth I was not ready to face. For 2 years, I have carried the weight of widowhood in this big, quiet house. My hands etched with lines and stories, clutched a cup of chamomile tea, James's favorite. I used to think I knew my life, my late husband James, our son Caleb, the memories we built here. But that morning, everything I thought I knew cracked open like a fault line. It started with a feeling, a nagging itch I could not ignore. Caleb and his wife Sophia had visited the day before, their smiles too bright, their questions too sharp. They asked about James's old Patek Philippe watch, the one he cherished, the one I kept tucked away in a velvet box upstairs. I did not think much of it then, just a passing curiosity, I told myself. But when I checked the box later, my heart sank. The watch was gone, stolen. And deep down, I knew who had taken it, my own son and his wife. The betrayal stung sharper than any loneliness I had ever felt. But that was not the half of it. That watch held more than gears and gold. It hid a secret James had kept from me for nearly 50 years, a secret that would unravel our marriage, our family, everything. A tiny key, a faded photograph, and a note in James's handwriting led me to a truth I never saw coming. It was not just about the watch. It was about a daughter I did not know existed, a will that changed everything, and a choice I would have to make to hold on to the past or step into a future I could finally call my own. How do you rebuild when the life you knew was built on lies? Stick with me, and I will take you through the day my world turned upside down, the secrets I uncovered, and how I found the strength to start again. The air in my Asheville home carried the scent of lavender from the garden I tended every morning. It was my sanctuary, this old house with its creaking floors and walls that held decades of laughter, love, and loss. I still moved through it with purpose, dusting the shelves, watering the violets James loved, and tending the rose bushes we had planted for our 25th anniversary. But lately, the house felt more like a museum than a home, each room a display of a life that no longer fit. This place, with all its memories, was both my comfort and my cage. Caleb, 50, now used to fill these rooms with his chatter, his scraped knees, his boyish dreams. But those days are long gone. He is a financial planner now, always busy, always rushing. His wife, Sophia, runs a boutique event planning business, her ambition as sharp as her tailored suits. They live just an hour away, but their visits are rare, once a month maybe, and always with a purpose. A quick check-in, a polite hug, then back to their lives. I told myself it was normal that children grow up and drift away, but deep down, it hurt. I had raised Caleb with every ounce of my heart, yet somewhere along the way, a wall had grown between us. After James passed 2 years ago, that wall got taller. He was the glue, the one who kept us tethered with his quiet wisdom and dry humor. Without him, Caleb and I struggled to find common ground. I would catch Sophia whispering to him, During visits, her eyes darting around my house, like she was appraising it. I tried to ignore it to focus on the good, the way Caleb's face still lit up when I made his favorite lemon pound cake. But the distance was there, a silent ache I carried alone. Yesterday's visit was different, though. They had shown up unannounced, all smiles and small talk, but something felt off. Sophia's questions about James's old things, his books, his desk, that Patek Philippe watch, lingered in my mind like a sour note. I could not shake the feeling they were after something more than a family catch-up. As I sat in my kitchen, the empty velvet box where the watch should have been stared back at me, and I knew something was wrong. Really wrong. 2 years ago, when James took his last breath, the world I had built over decades shifted. I still see him in every corner of this Asheville house, his reading glasses on the side table, the faint scent of his cedarwood cologne in the study. He was a stock market analyst, brilliant in a quiet way, with a knack for seeing patterns where others saw chaos. Losing him felt like losing the anchor of my life, and in the months that followed, I learned just how much he had held our family together. Without him, Caleb and I drifted further apart, like ships passing in a fog. I remember the days after the funeral when Caleb came by to help sort through James's things. His hands moved quickly, rifling through papers, his eyes scanning the room with a purpose I did not understand then. Sophia was there too, offering soft words of comfort, but her gaze lingered on the house on the oak staircase, the antique furniture, the garden view. I thought she was just being polite, admiring the home we had built. Now looking back, I see it differently. It was like they were measuring the worth of my life piece by piece. Caleb was not always so distant. When he was younger, he would call me every week, sharing stories about his first job, his dreams, even his messy divorce from his first wife, Emily. But after he married Sophia, something changed. Her ambition filled the space between us, her plans for bigger offices, fancier clients, a life that seemed to leave no room for me. I did not mind her drive. I admired it even. But it came with a cost. Caleb's visits dwindled. His calls grew shorter, and I became a checkbox on their busy schedules. I told myself it was fine that I was independent with my pension, my savings, this house. But the loneliness crept in, heavy and uninvited. That day, as I sat in the quiet of my kitchen, the memory of their last visit gnawed at me. Sophia's questions about James's watch were not casual, they were calculated. Caleb's nervous laugh when I mentioned the garden, the way they rushed out after dinner, it all felt wrong. I stared at the empty spot where the Patek Philippe should have been, my heart pounding with a truth I was not ready to name. My son, my only child, had betrayed me, and I needed to know why. The day Caleb and Sophia showed up unannounced, the air in my Asheville home felt heavier than usual. I was in the garden, kneeling by the rose bushes, my hands deep in the soil, when I heard their car pull into the driveway. I brushed the dirt off my jeans and forced a smile as they stepped out, Caleb with his usual hurried wave, Sophia with her polished grin. They had brought a bottle of wine, a cheap gesture that did not match the tension in their eyes. Something was off, but I welcomed them in, hoping it was just my imagination. We sat in the kitchen, the same table where Caleb used to do his homework, now set with my lemon pound cake and chamomile tea. Sophia chatted about her event planning business, something about a big client in Charlotte, but her words felt rehearsed, like she was filling the silence. Caleb kept glancing at her, then at me, his fingers tapping the table. When I asked about his work, he mumbled about clients and deadlines, his eyes darting to the hallway that led to James's study. I tried to keep things light, asking about their plans, but Sophia steered the conversation to James's old things, his books, his desk, and then out of nowhere, his Patek Philippe watch. "Oh, do you still have that watch James loved?" she asked, her voice too casual, her eyes too sharp. I nodded, saying it was upstairs, safe in its box. Caleb shifted in his seat, his face flushing the way it did when he was nervous as a boy. I brushed it off, serving them cake, but the question lingered like a splinter. Why the watch? Why now? They left soon after, claiming a last-minute meeting, their hugs quick and hollow. I stood at the door, watching their car disappear, a knot tightening in my chest. That night, I could not sleep. I kept replaying Sophia's question. Caleb's fidgeting, the way they had lingered near the study when I stepped out to make tea. By morning, I could not ignore it anymore. I climbed the stairs, opened the velvet box in my bedroom, and stared at the empty space where the watch should have been. My heart sank, not just for the loss, but for what it meant. Caleb and Sophia had taken it, and I needed answers. The morning after I found the empty watch box, I sat on my porch in Asheville, the spring breeze carrying the scent of blooming roses. My hands trembled as I dialed Nora, my neighbor and closest friend since James's death. At 70, Nora was a firecracker widowed like me, with a sharp tongue and a heart that saw through nonsense. I needed her clarity, her strength to make sense of the betrayal gnawing at me. Caleb and Sophia had taken James's Patek Philippe watch, and I could not shake the feeling there was more to it than money. Nora answered on the second ring, her voice warm but laced with concern when she heard mine. I poured out the story, their odd visit, Sophia's pointed questions, Caleb's nervous glances, and the empty velvet box. I told her how I had lain awake, replaying every moment, convincing myself it was not a mistake. The watch did not just vanish. Ellie, that is not like Caleb, Nora said, but her tone hardened when I mentioned Sophia's interest in the watch. She has always got an angle, that one. What do you think they are after? I did not know, not yet. The watch was valuable. James had bought it at an auction in Paris for our 25th anniversary, a fortune he never fully admitted to spending. But why steal it? They knew I would give them money if they asked. Nora suggested they might need quick cash for Sophia's business, maybe to impress some big client. Or she said, her voice dropping, there is something about that watch we do not know. James was always cagey about his collection. Her words hit me like a cold splash. James had loved that watch, polishing it with care, never letting anyone hold it too long. Could it hold a secret? I told Nora I would start digging call antique dealers, maybe track down Marcus, James's old friend, who knew watches better than anyone. Be careful, Nora warned. If they took it, they are not going to like you sniffing around. I nodded, though she could not see me. She was right, but I was not the fragile widow they thought I was. I would find the truth no matter how much it hurt. The next morning, I stood in my Asheville kitchen, staring at the empty velvet box, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and disbelief. The Patek Philippe watch, James's pride was gone, and I could not pretend anymore. My son Caleb and his wife Sophia had taken it. I wanted to call them, demand answers, but something stopped me. If they had gone this far, they were not going to confess over the phone. I needed proof, something solid to confront the betrayal that cut deeper than I could say. I grabbed my old address book and flipped to Marcus's number. Marcus Brody, a wiry man with a passion for antique watches, had been James's friend for decades. If anyone knew where the watch had gone, it was him. My hand shook as I dialed the phone, ringing too loud in the quiet house. When Marcus answered, his voice was warm but cautious. Ellie, it has been a while. Everything okay? I did not waste time. I told him the watch was missing, that Caleb and Sophia had asked about it during their last visit, and that I suspected they had taken it to sell. There was a long pause. Then Marcus sighed. Ellie, they were here 2 days ago. Brought the Patek Philippe for an appraisal. Said you had given it to them after James passed. My stomach twisted. Given it to them, I had never part with James's watch. I pressed Marcus for details, what they had said, how they had acted. He hesitated, then admitted Sophia had been oddly curious, asking if the watch had any hidden features, like a secret compartment. Caleb, he said, seemed nervous, barely speaking. Marcus had not bought it yet, promising them an answer in a few days, but he had found something strange when he inspected it. Strange how I asked, my voice barely steady. Marcus lowered his tone. "There is a hidden panel in the watch, Ellie. I have not opened it yet. I wanted to check with you first. But it is not just a watch. There is something more to it." My mind raced. A hidden panel? James had never mentioned anything like that. I told Marcus I would come to his shop that afternoon. As I hung up, a chill ran through me. Caleb and Sophia were not just after money. They were after something James had hidden. Something I did not even know existed. I sat in my Asheville living room, the weight of Marcus's words sinking in. A hidden panel in James's Patek Philippe watch. It sounded like something from a mystery novel, not my life. For nearly 50 years, I thought I knew James, his quiet smiles, his love for numbers, the way he would hum while tending our roses. But now, the idea of a secret he had kept from me felt like a betrayal, almost as sharp as Caleb and Sophia's theft. I needed to see that watch, to hold it, to understand what James had hidden and why my son was so desperate to get it. I called a cab and headed to Marcus's shop in the heart of Asheville's historic district. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside, the air thick with the musty scent of old wood and polished metal. Marcus greeted me with a nod, his eyes kind but serious. He led me to a small back room where the Patek Philippe sat on a velvet cloth, its gold case gleaming under the lamplight. My heart caught at the sight of it. James's pride, the watch he would cradle like a piece of his soul. Marcus handed it to me, and I felt its familiar weight, heavy with memories and now secrets. "Show me," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Marcus pointed to a tiny seam on the back, barely visible. He pressed it with a delicate tool, and a small panel clicked open, revealing a hidden compartment. My breath hitched. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a note in James's handwriting: "Clara, 1966. Forgive me." The photograph showed a young woman, maybe 20, with dark hair and serious eyes that felt vaguely familiar. The key, old and intricately carved, gleamed with purpose. What did it open? And who was Clara? I looked at Marcus, my mind spinning. Caleb and Sophia asked about this compartment. He nodded. Sophia was insistent, kept asking if I had found anything unusual. I did not tell her about this. I wanted to talk to you first. I clutched the watch, the note, the photo, the key. Whatever James had hidden, Caleb and Sophia wanted it badly, and I was going to find out why before they could cover their tracks. Holding the Patek Philippe in Marcus's shop, I could not tear my eyes from the photograph of the young woman Clara, 1966, James's handwriting scrawled on the back. Her face stirred something in me, a flicker of recognition I could not place. The note, "Forgive me," felt like a confession, and the tiny key in my hand seemed to pulse with secrets. My chest tightened. James had hidden this for decades, and now Caleb and Sophia were chasing it. I needed to know what this key unlocked and why it mattered so much. I asked Marcus to hold the watch a little longer, to tell Caleb and Sophia he needed time to consult an expert. "Buy me a few days," I said, my voice firm, despite the storm inside me. Marcus nodded, his eyes full of understanding. "I will keep it safe, Ellie, but be careful." Sophia was pushy, offered me extra to check the watch's insides. "They are not just after the money." His words confirmed my fears. This was not about selling a valuable antique. They were hunting for whatever James had hidden in that compartment. I tucked the photograph and key into my purse, thanked Marcus, and stepped out into Asheville's bustling streets. The spring air felt sharp, waking me up. Back home, I sat in my kitchen, the items spread before me. Clara's serious eyes stared up, and I wondered who she was to James. A lover? A friend? Why had he kept her photo hidden? And the key? What did it open? I thought of James's study, untouched since his death 2 years ago. His desk, his books, his secrets. If there was an answer, it was there. I stood, resolve hardening. I was not the fragile widow Caleb and Sophia thought I was. I had spent too long living in the shadow of James's memory of Caleb's distance. This key, this note, they were pieces of a puzzle, and I was done being left in the dark. I headed to the study, my heart pounding with purpose. Whatever James had hidden, whatever Caleb and Sophia wanted, I would find it first. Not for revenge, but for truth, for the life I deserved to reclaim. I stepped into James's study, the air heavy with the scent of old books and leather. It was a time capsule untouched since he passed 2 years ago in 2023. His oak desk stood like a sentinel, papers still stacked where he had left them, his leather chair creased from years of use. I had not had the heart to change a thing, but now, with a tiny key burning a hole in my pocket, I saw the room differently, not as a shrine, but as a vault of secrets. The photograph of Clara and James's note, "Forgive me," pushed me forward. Whatever he had hidden, this key would unlock it. I started with the desk, rifling through drawers, checking every folder, every nook. Nothing. My eyes scanned the shelves lined with finance books and mementos from our travels. Then I noticed the bookshelf against the far wall, its dark wood slightly misaligned, as if it had been moved. My heart quickened. I ran my fingers along the edges, feeling for anything unusual. There, behind a row of dusty journals, was a faint seam in the wall, a hidden panel barely noticeable unless you knew to look. With trembling hands, I pulled the key from my pocket and searched the panel. In the corner, almost invisible, was a small keyhole. The key slid in perfectly, clicking as I turned it. The panel shifted, revealing a narrow compartment. Inside was a leather folder tied with a faded ribbon. I carried it to the desk, my breath shallow. Untying the ribbon, I opened it to find documents, letters, photos, and an envelope marked, "To Ellie, if I am gone." James's handwriting. My knees buckled, and I sank into his chair. He had known I might find this. He had planned for it. I stared at the envelope, afraid to open it, afraid of what it would reveal about the man I had loved for nearly 50 years. Clara's face flashed in my mind, her serious eyes that haunting familiarity. What had James done that needed forgiveness? Why had Caleb and Sophia risked everything to find this key? The answers were in that folder, and I was not sure I was ready for them. But I had come too far to turn back now. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. The truth was waiting, and it was time to face it. I sat in James's chair, the leather folder open, on the desk, the envelope marked, "To Ellie, if I'm gone," staring up at me. My hands trembled as I broke the seal, pulling out a letter in James's careful handwriting. The words blurred for a moment, my heart racing with a mix of dread and curiosity. What had he hidden from me all these years? I began to read, and with each line, the life I thought I knew unraveled. "My dearest Ellie," it began. "If you are reading this, I am no longer with you, and you have found the key I hid in the watch. I am sorry for keeping this from you, not because I did not trust you, but because I was afraid." My breath caught. Afraid James, the man who faced volatile markets with calm, was afraid. He went on to confess about Clara, a woman he had known in 1966 before we met. A brief romance, he called it, that left her pregnant. Their daughter, Lila Monroe, was born a year later. My heart stopped. A daughter. James had a daughter I never knew existed. He wrote of sending Clara money through a lawyer, of meeting Lila secretly after Clara's death when Lila was 18. Lila, now a teacher in Portland, Oregon, with a family of her own, never demanded recognition. James had written a new will hidden in this folder, giving Lila 30% of his company Harper Analytics, while Caleb got 20%. The Patek Philippe was meant for me a keepsake, but the key inside led to this truth. "Forgive me, Ellie," he wrote. "I should have told you, but I could not bear losing you." I set the letter down, tears stinging my eyes. 50 years of marriage, and James had carried this secret this other life. The folder held more photos of Lila, from a toddler to a woman with her own children, her face a mirror of Clara's with James's smile. There was a new will signed and notarized dated 6 months before his death in 2023. Caleb and Sophia must have known about it, must have stolen the watch to find this key to destroy the evidence that cut Caleb's inheritance. I felt betrayed not just by my son, but by the man I loved. Yet I knew what I had to do. The truth could not stay buried. I sat in James's study, the leather folder open, Lila's photographs scattered across the desk. Her face, Clara's eyes, James's smile stared back at me. A stranger who was my husband's daughter. The letter, with its confession of a life he had hidden, felt like a wound I had not known was there. 50 years of marriage, of shared mornings and quiet evenings in this Asheville home, and James had kept this secret. I wanted to be angry to scream at the walls, but all I felt was a heavy sadness, like a stone in my chest. And Caleb, my son, my boy, had known about this, had stolen the watch to hide it, to protect his inheritance. The betrayal cut deeper than I could bear. I leaned back in James's chair, the leather creaking under me, and closed my eyes. Memories flooded in James, teaching Caleb to ride a bike. The three of us laughing over dinner, our trips to the Blue Ridge Mountains. Had it all been a lie? No, not all of it. James's love had been real. I believed that. But this secret, this daughter, he had never acknowledged, made me question everything. Who was the man I had loved? And how had Caleb become someone who would steal from his own mother? I thought of Lila out there in Portland, living her life unaware of this. Will this house, maybe even of me? Did she know her father had loved her in his quiet, hidden way? The will gave her 30% of Harper Analytics, more than Caleb's share. No wonder he and Sophia were desperate to find that key. They were not just after the watch's value, they wanted to bury the truth. I clutched the letter, my resolve hardening. James had left this for me to find, to decide. I could not let Caleb's greed erase his wishes. I stood gathering the photos, the letter, the will. My heart ached, but I was not broken. Not yet. I would call Nora tomorrow, tell her everything, and then I would see Margaret, our lawyer, to make sure this will was honored. Caleb and Sophia would face me soon, and I would be ready. For James, for Lila, for the truth, and for the woman, I was becoming stronger than I had ever known. The morning sun filtered through my Asheville kitchen, but the warmth could not touch the chill inside me. Lila's photos, James's letter, and the new will sat on the table, each a piece of a life I thought I understood. I sipped my chamomile tea, but it tasted bitter, tainted by betrayal. James had hidden a daughter, and Caleb, my own son, had stolen from me to keep that secret buried. I needed a plan, someone to lean on, so I called Nora. Her voice, sharp and steady, was the anchor I needed in this storm. I told her everything. The hidden compartment in the Patek Philippe Clara's photo, the key in James's letter revealing Lila, his daughter, from 1966. Nora listened, her gasps punctuating my words. A daughter, Ellie. How could he keep that from you? She asked, her voice thick with disbelief. I did not have an answer, only a dull ache where trust used to be. When I mentioned the will giving Lila 30% of Harper Analytics, Nora's tone hardened. That is why Caleb and Sophia took the watch. They knew about the will, did they not? I nodded into the phone. My suspicion, now certainty. We talked through my next steps. I would confront Caleb and Sophia, but not yet, not until I had the will validated. Nora suggested calling Margaret, our lawyer, to ensure James's wishes were legally binding. You need to protect yourself, Ellie, she said. They have already stolen from you. Who knows what else they are capable of? Her words stung, but she was right. Caleb was not the boy I had raised anymore, and Sophia's ambition had twisted him into someone I barely recognized. I decided to invite them over that evening to face them with the truth in hand. Nora offered to be there, a quiet presence, in case things got heated. You are not alone in this, she said, and I clung to those words like a lifeline. As I hung up, I looked at Lila's photo again. her smile so like James's. I was not ready to meet her, not yet, but I owed her justice, and I owed myself the strength to face Caleb's betrayal, to reclaim my life from the lies that had bound me for too long. I stood in my Asheville kitchen, the leather folder tucked safely in my bag, the weight of James's secrets pressing against me. I could not delay any longer. I needed to ensure his true will was honored for Lila, for justice, for the truth. I dialed Margaret, our family lawyer, who had handled James's affairs for years. Her voice was crisp, but warm when she answered, though I caught a hint of surprise when I said I needed to meet urgently about a new will. "A new will, Ellie?" she asked. "We executed James's will 2 years ago." I told her I had found another dated later, and I was coming to her office that afternoon. Margaret's office in downtown Asheville was all glass and polished wood, a stark contrast to my cluttered, memory-filled home. I handed her the folder, watching her face as she read the will, her eyes widening at the mention of Lila Monroe James's daughter. "This is unexpected," she said, flipping to the signatures, Marcus Brody and a notary she recognized. "It is authentic, Ellie. Signed 6 months before James's death in 2023. It supersedes the earlier will." I knotted my throat tight. She read James's letter next, her expression softening. "He kept this from you all those years." That must hurt. It did. But I pushed past the ache to focus on what mattered. I told Margaret I wanted the will enforce Lila's 30% of Harper Analytics, Caleb's 20%, and my share, including the house and the Patek Philippe. She warned me it would not be easy. Caleb has already received 50% of the company under the old will. He will fight this, and it could drag on in court. I did not care. This was not about money. It was about James's wishes, about righting a wrong. I asked her to start the process and to contact Lila, whose details were in the folder. As I left, a weight lifted, but another settled in its place. Tonight, I would face Caleb and Sophia with Nora by my side. They had stolen from me, lied to me, and now they would learn I had found the truth they tried to bury. I was not the fragile widow they expected. I was ready to fight for James, for Lila, and for the life I was reclaiming. The clock in my Asheville living room ticked toward 7 each second, tightening the knot in my chest. Nora sat across from me, her steady presence calming my nerves as we waited for Caleb and Sophia. I had set the table with chamomile tea and lemon pound cake, not out of warmth, but because some battles are easier fought over familiar rituals. The leather folder with James's will and letter lay hidden in my bag, ready to shatter their lies. I was not the Ellie they expected tonight, meek, forgiving. I was done with that. The doorbell chimed, and I opened it to find Caleb, his face tense, and Sophia, her smile too tight, her eyes scanning the room. We settled in the living room, the air thick with unspoken truths. Caleb fidgeted, asking if everything was okay, his voice betraying nerves. Sophia sipped her tea, her polished calm, barely hiding her unease. I did not waste time. "I spoke to Marcus Brody," I said, watching their faces. "You took James's Patek Philippe and tried to sell it. You said I gave it to you." "That is a lie." Caleb's eyes widened, his flush giving him away. "Mom, I found it in Dad's study. It is part of my inheritance." Sophia nodded, her voice smooth. "We just wanted to know its value, Ellie." I shook my head, pulling the photograph and key from my bag. "You were looking for this, were you not? The hidden compartment. You knew it held more than gold." Their silence was deafening. Sophia's hand tightening on Caleb's arm. I pressed on, my voice steady. "I found the key. It led me to James's real will, hidden in his study, a will you did not want me to find." Caleb stood, his voice rising. "What will?" "The will was read 2 years ago." I met his gaze unflinching. "This one is newer, signed 6 months before James died. It names his daughter Lila Monroe and gives her 30% of Harper Analytics. You get 20. Sophia paled, her composure cracking. Caleb stammered, "That is impossible. There is no daughter." But their eyes betrayed them. They knew. They had stolen the watch to find the key to destroy the will that cut their share. I stood taller, my heart pounding, but sure. The truth was out, and I was not backing down. The air in my Asheville living room crackled with tension as Caleb's face reddened, his denial crumbling under my gaze. Sophia gripped his arm, her polished mask slipping, revealing panic. I held up Lila's photograph, her dark eyes and James's smile undeniable proof of the truth. "This is Lila Monroe," I said, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. "James's daughter, your half-sister Caleb. The will I found in his study, hidden behind the bookshelf, names her. It is real, signed and notarized. Margaret confirmed it today." Caleb's jaw tightened, his voice a low growl. "This is a scam, Mom, some forgery to trick you." But his eyes flickered to Sophia, and I saw it, guilt, fear, complicity. Sophia tried to recover her tone, smooth but strained. "Ellie, let us talk this through. There is no proof this Lila is who you think." I shook my head, done with their lies. "You knew about her, did you not? That is why you stole the Patek Philippe, why you asked Marcus about hidden compartments. You were looking for the key to destroy the will." Silence fell heavy and suffocating. Caleb sank back onto the couch, his fight draining. Sophia's lips parted, but no words came. I pressed on, my voice rising with a strength I had not felt in years. James wanted Lila to have her share, 30% of Harper Analytics. "You get 20, Caleb. That is his final wish, and I am going to honor it." Nora, sitting quietly, gave me a nod, her presence grounding me. Caleb's eyes flashed with anger. "You are taking her side, some stranger over your own son. She is not a stranger to James," I said, my heart aching but resolute. "And you lost the right to call this unfair when you stole from me." Sophia reached for Caleb, whispering something, but he shook her off. "We will fight this, Mom. In court, if we have to." I met his gaze, unflinching. "Do what you must. But the truth is out, and I have the evidence. Marcus, Margaret, the will, James's letter. You cannot hide it anymore." For the first time, I saw fear in their eyes, not just defiance. The room felt lighter, as if the weight of their deception was finally lifting. The silence in my Asheville living room was deafening, Caleb's defiance wilting under the weight of the truth. Sophia's hand hovered near his, but he did not take it, his eyes fixed on the floor. I stood tall, the leather folder with James's will and letter clutched in my bag, a shield against their lies. Nora's steady gaze from across the room gave me strength, but my heart still ached. This was my son, the boy I had raised now, a stranger who had betrayed me for money, for control. I took a deep breath, my voice cutting through the tension. "There is more, Caleb. I am selling the house." Their heads snapped up, shock replacing fear. Sophia's mouth opened, but I did not give her a chance to speak. "I have found a place downtown, a small apartment, no stairs, just right for me. This house, it is too big, too full of memories that do not feel like mine anymore." Caleb's face twisted, a mix of anger and confusion. "Mom, this is our home. You cannot just—" "It is my home," I interrupted, my tone firm but calm. "And I choose what happens to it. The sale will follow James's will, half to me, the rest, split between you and Lila." Sophia's eyes narrowed, calculating, but Caleb exploded. "Lila, she gets nothing. This is our family, our legacy." I shook my head, weary but resolute. "She is James's daughter, Caleb, your sister. He wanted her to have her share, and I will not let you erase that." Nora shifted, ready to step in, but I held up a hand. "I was not done. You stole from me, lied to me, tried to hide your father's wishes. That is not family. That is greed." Caleb's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him. Sophia tried to speak her voice, soft, placating, but I cut her off. No more excuses. Margaret has already started the legal process. The truth is out, and I am moving on with or without you. For the first time in years, I felt free, unburdened by their expectations, their manipulations. The house, the past, the lies, they no longer held me. I was ready to step into a future I would shape myself. As Caleb and Sophia left my Asheville home, the door clicking shut behind them, a strange calm settled over me. The living room, still warm with the scent of chamomile tea, felt different, less like a cage, more like a space I could finally leave behind. Nora reached for my hand, her eyes soft but fierce. "You did good, Ellie," she said. "You stood your ground." I nodded, my heart heavy, but lighter than it had been in years. Confronting Caleb, laying bare his betrayal and James's secrets, had cracked something open inside me. Not just pain, but possibility. I sank into the couch, the weight of the night settling in. Caleb's anger, Sophia's calculated silence, their refusal to admit the truth. It hurt, but it did not break me. I thought of James's letter, his apology for hiding Lila, his daughter, for so long. I thought of Lila herself, a woman I had never met, living her life in Portland, unaware of the storm her existence had stirred. James had wanted her to have her share, and I would make sure she did. Not out of duty, but because it was right. Because I was done living in the shadow of lies. Selling the house was not just about practicality, it was about freedom. This place, with its rose bushes and memories, had held me too long. I could see myself in that downtown apartment, small and simple, with a view of Asheville's vibrant streets. I could imagine mornings without the weight of the past evenings, planning trips I had always dreamed of. Italy, maybe, where James and I once danced under Tuscan stars. Caleb's betrayal had pushed me here, but I was choosing to move forward, to redefine my life on my terms. I looked at Nora, her presence a reminder I was not alone. "I am not the same Ellie anymore," I said, my voice quiet but sure. "I have spent too long holding on to things, James, Caleb, this house. It is time to let go." She smiled, squeezing my hand. "You are stronger than you know, Ellie Harper." And for the first time, I believed it. The truth had torn my world apart, but it had also set me free. I was ready to build something new, something mine. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my Asheville bedroom window, the rose bushes outside glowing like a promise of something new. For the first time in years, I felt unburdened, as if the weight of James's secrets and Caleb's betrayal had finally lifted. I sat at my kitchen table, chamomile tea in hand, and dialed a real estate agent I had known through Nora. "I am ready to sell the house," I told her, my voice steady. She was thrilled, saying the market in Asheville was hot, that a place like mine, with its charm and history, would go fast. I smiled, imagining a smaller life, one that fit the woman I was becoming. I pictured my new apartment downtown, with its wide windows and no stairs to climb. No more creaking floors, heavy with memories, no more rose bushes that tied me to a past I was ready to release. I would keep a few things, James's favorite books, the Patek Philippe watch, Lila's photos, but the rest could go. The money from the sale, split per James's will, would give me freedom. I was already planning my first trip to Tuscany, where James and I had once dreamed of lingering longer, sipping wine under olive trees. This time, I would go alone, not to mourn, but to celebrate the life I was reclaiming. I called Margaret, my lawyer, to check on the will's progress. She had begun the paperwork to enforce it, reaching out to Lila in Portland. She was surprised, Margaret said, but grateful. She did not know about the will. I nodded, relieved. Lila deserved her share, and I would let the lawyers handle the rest. Caleb might fight it, drag it through courts, but I was not afraid. I had the truth. James's letter, Marcus's testimony, the notarized will. For now, I focused on what I could control, my future, my choices. As I hung up, I looked out at the garden, the roses James planted still blooming. They would always be part of me, but they no longer defined me. I was starting over, not with anger, but with hope. A new home, a new journey, a new me. And for the first time, that felt like enough. I sat on my Asheville porch, the morning sun warming my face, the scent of roses mingling with the fresh spring air. The Patek Philippe watch rested on the table beside my chamomile tea, its gold case catching the light. I opened it, tracing the empty hidden compartment where James's secrets, Clara's photo, the key the note had lain for decades. Lila's face, so like her father's, flickered in my mind. She was out there, in Portland, a teacher with a family, a life apart from mine. Part of me wanted to meet her, to see James's smile in her, to understand the daughter he had hidden. But not now. Not yet. I had told Margaret to handle Lila's share of the inheritance, to let her know about the will without involving me directly. Lila was not to blame for James's silence, just as I was not to blame for believing in our life together. Meeting her might come later, when the wounds of betrayal, James's Caleb's, had healed a little more. For now, I needed to focus on myself, on the woman I was becoming. The house was already on the market, my downtown apartment reserved. I could almost feel the freedom of those smaller rooms, unburdened by the weight of this old place. I thought of Caleb and Sophia, their silence since our confrontation a week ago. They might fight the will, drag it through courts, but I was not afraid. The truth was on my side, James's letter, the notarized will, Marcus's testimony. I would let them wrestle with their choices while I made mine. Tuscany was calling its rolling hills and golden light, a dream I had shelved too long. I would walk those streets, taste the wine, and find joy in moments that were mine alone. As I sipped my tea, I felt a quiet strength settle in. The past James's secrets. Caleb's betrayal had shaped me, but it would not define me. I was stepping into a life I chose not one-handed to me. The roses bloomed beyond the porch, a reminder of love and loss, but also of growth. I was ready to grow too, into a future bright with possibility. I stood on my Asheville porch, the Patek Philippe watch in my hand, its steady ticking, a reminder of time moving forward. The roses bloomed, below their petals catching the morning light, and I felt a surge of hope I had not known in years. Life's hardest truths, betrayal, secrets, loss, can also be the doorway to something new. James's hidden daughter, Caleb's deception, the will that changed everything. They broke my heart, but they also broke me free. I am selling this house, leaving behind the weight of the past and stepping into a future. I choose a cozy apartment, a trip to Tuscany, a life that is mine. What about you? What is holding you back? A secret you are afraid to face, a relationship that is more pain than love, or a dream you have shelved too long? Take it from me, the truth, no matter how hard, is worth facing. It is the first step to reclaiming your life, to finding the strength you did not know you had. I am starting over, and you can too. So ask yourself, what is one choice you can make today to move toward the life you deserve? If my story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and join me on this journey. I will be sharing more about letting go, starting fresh, and finding joy at any age. Drop a comment below. Tell me about a time you faced a hard truth and came out stronger. Let us inspire each other to keep moving forward, no matter what life throws our way. And do not forget to like and share this video with someone who needs a little courage today. Here is to new beginnings, for me, for you, for all of us.